Ever wonder where the perfect restaurant idea comes from, Wes?
I do wonder, but I have no idea where.
Well, guess what? It comes from vent sessions, learning the hard way, and maybe just a little bit of bourbon.
All right. Sounds tasty.
All this leads to kick-ass sandwiches, soups, salads, and more in a laid-back atmosphere at Crust Kitchen and Bar.
Crust Kitchen and Bar. They've been crafting remarkable experiences, one bite and one sip at a time. Find them under the Rome Air Lofts at 86 Hanger Road, Rome, or online at crustkitchencny.com.
All right.
This thing
All
we're
right.
rocking and
Is
rolling.
this far enough away?
Yeah, I can control you over here. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah, Brad does it all. He's the MC
this.
plus
Yeah.
the
See?
engineer.
It's all show. It's all show. There's
Screen board, everything.
nothing
the
actually
colors,
works.
All this
He's got some
stuff.
laugh tracks on there too. If we
Yeah, I
start to
do.
get really funny,
Very impressive.
Thanks.
So,
All right.
give it a go, Brad.
Wesley, here with Tony Picente.
Yeah, we're big time now.
Big time. We've made it to the big leagues. I mean, what are we into? The longest standing county executive in Oneida County history. Started back in, appointed, 2006 was that?
appointed and started in
And
seven.
then started
in seven.
Started in seven. That's, I
January
mean,
of 7.
quite the run.
It is. You know, I mean, it is. It doesn't, it really, you know, I think about it every day because obviously, but really doesn't seem like 18 years.
Still a spring chicken.
I mean, know about that. I've got much more gray since then, or white probably. But now it doesn't seem like that long. I mean, it's moved. I mean, we've done a lot, so maybe that's why. I mean,
There's been momentum. There's something to work on.
Been momentum in the last several. I mean, obviously, with notwithstanding the pandemic and all that fun,
Right.
That blur.
You know, here we are.
Now, if we asked your wife if it's been a long time, how would Eleanor respond?
Different answer.
Different answer. Heck of a name, by the way.
I mean, different
My
answer.
3-year-old also an Eleanor, which is
she-
fun.
I got to tell her. Oh, I think she knows that though. Because
And Eleanor, Virginia. Now that's a tough combo I have.
That's
She's been playing bridge with her friends since she was born. So how much longer are we going to go?
Well, look, if you ask her.
Yes, I want to hear both the
She's
answers.
checked out,
You
or-
can play both personalities here for
you know,
us.
I truthfully, I really had not envisioned, doing it even as long as I've been here now and whatever. I had never run for public office, before this. So it was, although I had been, politically involved and worked, on the county level, on the state level, and governor and stuff like that and things. And so, and then when I got in, and I thought, geez, if I could do 2 or 3 terms and get some stuff done. Mm-hmm. And recognizing too that, when you talk about the longest, serving, no county executive before me ever completed 2 terms, let alone
Oh wow, there's
served. I mean, and that's
fact.
That's the
Or
truth.
not so fun fact. I know. For
I know,
them.
that's-
Yeah, I can go through
Yeah.
them. I know. It started. A couple of them were elected to a second term, but never. The first one elected to a second term was Bill Bryant back in the 70s. He didn't complete it. He left. He just left. After that, Jack Plumley was elected to 2 terms and left the year before he retired, in the year of his last term, in January of that year. Ray Meyer ran for 2, was elected, left to go to the Senate. And then, Ralph Yannis, I think he ran for 2, or he was about to run for a second term. He had finished Ray's term, ran for his own term, was about to run, and then he left and became a judge, and then Joe ran, and Joe only served
Yeah, he was there for
3.5 years. Joe was like one of the shortest serving, I think.
Well, I'm glad they didn't end in like assassination or something.
Yeah,
It
I
sounded a
was
bit
gonna say
morbid
this.
when you said that in the first.
No
Like,
one's
oh
made
no.
it.
Well, yeah,
No
no,
one's-
I know, yeah, it does. It's like it's.
They went to
interesting,
Ford's
though,
Theater
but So
and-
that was the thing. It was like, okay, I
your
wanted
goal was to
to
at
finish.
least-
Wasn't
Wasn't
the
hard to
one.
break
I
a
really
record.
wanted to. It wasn't hard to break that, and then the third, and then the fourth, and I really didn't think there'd be a fifth. And I think I think COVID changed some of that because we didn't get to accomplish everything. We had a lot on the board and a lot projects that had just begun and were envisioned, and so that kind of changed the idea of the fifth. But we'll see. You know,
We'll see. We're not going to get any breaking news
I
here in another round.
I mean, if I
thought
my
your
wife
good
will
looks
listen
would get
and
someone
say,
out.
"Why didn't you say this is it?"
Now, can we get Eleanor on the phone, please, and see what she says? Can you beam her in here,
You could.
Brad?
Actually, if I actually had the number, we could try it.
We'll ask her the same question and see
you
what
could
we
ask her
get.
the same question. She'll say, "This is it."
Well, next time I know what to ask.
So speaking of which, and
Yeah.
I know we'll get into the county stuff,
yeah.
but tell us about you. Like, let's get to know the person of Tony. Like, what's going on? I mean, I saw a putting mat in your office, so I mean,
Yeah, but
golf's
I'm not
in there.
anywhere. I mean, I'm not.
What else are we
anywhere.
doing besides fixing the county day by day?
I'm not. It's not real exciting, I guess. I mean, from that time, simple stuff. I mean, I like. I play golf occasionally. I don't play as much as I like or whatever. I used to way back when I didn't have.
Back in
a
your
lot of
former
different
life?
responsibilities.
Yeah.
Or
So no
whatever.
record number of rounds for a county
No
executive.
record.
Gonna make it in the
No.
new records.
No,
Check the
but,
boxes.
no.
Now, are you just a scramble guy because you get invited to these things, or are you
Yeah.
playing your own ball once in a while?
Play my own ball once in a
All
while.
right,
I
good,
do. No,
good. So
I
that's-
scramble a
there's a
lot
difference.
more.
There's a difference
Scramble
between-
more. I mean,
Okay. But you'll tee it up
and
on
my
your own
friend-
once in a
My
while
friend
and-
Blake Ford calls me the best once-a-year golfer around. Or
Ooh,
whatever.
well, that's a compliment. It means you're an
It's a
athlete.
compliment.
Yeah.
So
Natural.
Natural. I don't know about that.
You're not sure, or just really lucky.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. Or maybe it's because I don't play enough and it just looks good.
Well, sometimes those kind of virgin swings are good. When you start thinking too much
That's
and playing
true.
too much, you
Right,
get a little bit in
right,
your own mind and your own
It's a
helmet.
head game. It really is. It's more of a head game than anything.
Right.
But
So is the long game? Is the putter? What is the
Long
best part of your
pretty
game?
good for the size that I am or whatever.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty good. My short my putting's always been pretty good,
ooh,
but my short game has gotten better. I
know the
need
feeling.
work on that. I need work on the short game. Short game, the
Don't we all?
You
No
know,
one likes to
wait,
wait,
practice.
you can't say that line.
can't.
You can't say that line.
Even talk about
You're basically a PGA player in your short game.
even
You
talk
can't.
about
That's the only thing I can do.
short
Don't
game-
bullshit
short
us. You
game needs
can't
a
do
lot
it.
of short game
Yeah.
needs work.
Yes.
I got it. I mean, not the,
But you
not
got the 8-foot slightly uphill putt, at least from your office.
yeah, exactly.
You got that putt
I
down.
got that putt down. I got that one down.
Well, that's good.
But,
Yeah,
I grew up in East Utica.
Yeah.
Went to public school for elementary. Went to Notre Dame in high school. Bounced around. Did and then MVCC, Utica College.
True local there.
True
local.
Local in that regard, and got into government young, and and look, they had played my share a little bit of sports here and there, and I was always a big baseball fan, still am, and then
Yankees fan.
Yankees, right?
Yankees fan.
Yankees fan, played, and
Who's the Yankee? If you had to pick, I know it's hard. If you had to pick one. Yankee
Who's your
through the
hero when
years.
you're
Who's
growing
the
up?
hero?
There had to be that one.
There has to be somebody.
I date myself because I grew up, and you follow your father in some of this stuff. And my father was a big baseball fan, and so my father was, and I was born, in 1960. So I mean, I'm in those 60s. Even though, I was raised on Mickey Mantle.
Okay.
I mean, that was like initially that was the.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
fair.
that was the the idol of my youth and growing up. So when I think Yankees, I think that. But then as it evolved over time, of course, the championship years changed. I was a big Thurman Munson fan, Reggie Jackson fan. All that in the 70s and
Sure.
everything. So I evolved through all that, and
That was a good era for
it was
through there.
good. It was,
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
it's hard not to be a
But
Yankee fan.
But when you grew up in the 60s, though, too, they were nowhere to be found
Yeah.
in the standings. Until later in the 70s when they started getting good. So no, I did that, and baseball's a big passion. Got into football more, as years went by, and then look, for fun, it's I kind of just do odds and ends. I don't really have one. Can't say there's one set thing. Like I can't say it's golf or anything else. I think it's a jump around and do a few things.
Yeah.
little bit of a foodie, or where's the stops in Utica, Rome, or I guess I should say Oneida County?
Yeah,
Oneida County,
for this-
right,
for
we
this-
can't get-
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
what are the regulars?
I'm in Rome. If I don't say crust first, I'm in trouble because
We'll touch on that. Yeah,
that's
It is a nice
big thing.
spot.
It is a great spot. It is, but growing up in East Utica, the restaurants, a couple of them are still hanging out. Ventura's still, it was the go-to when I was, with my parents early on, and then through time, and then Danielle's and still the standards, Delmonico's and some of the others.
fair enough.
Yeah, Ventura's is fun. Brad and I had a 7-hour lunch there with
the
Barry and the Bank
Oh,
of
yeah.
Utica
with the
boys.
Bank of Utica.
Yeah,
I was going to say I was going to finish that.
You could have guessed, right?
I could have guessed.
It was a good thing we all had an event to get to after them and us, or that could have gone on for
Yeah, I told
a few
Lauren.
days.
I told Lauren what we were doing. She goes, "Uh-oh."
I mean, it's
Well, it's every time, and especially in my time as county executive too, when and I've had a couple secretaries over time, and when they come in and they go, Brian Laughlin called or Tom called, and they want to have lunch, and I'm like, okay, yep, all right,
would you schedule me?
what time? Block it off.
Block
and I'm
off
like,
3 days,
block
please.
off till
till Sunday.
don't schedule anything in the afternoon or whatever. And she's like, why? Is it at lunch? Yeah.
Maybe dinner.
Yeah, it could be.
You might have to ask for menus again. It's one of those.
So
Yeah, they're great. Well, that's good. So I was kind of brainwashed as a Red Sox fan when I was little, so don't hold it against me.
Well, you can't be.
I'm not
perfect.
really a Yankee hater. I mean, I kind of have to a little bit just for the fun rivalry. But my dad, Ted, was a huge Ted Williams guy.
Oh, okay.
So he grew up, memorizing everyone's batting average, like many kids back in the day. And so when my brothers and I'm the youngest, we went to school in Rome. We just kind of slowly started rooting for the Yankees because everyone else did.
Right.
And
he didn't
my
like
dad did not like
He
this.
didn't like
so my dad threw us in the car and drove us to Fenway.
Ah,
And this is in the middle of the summer, and we're running a golf course, and my poor mother is running it by herself now. And so we went to a game, and it was fun. I mean, you're at Fenway Park, really cool. And we stay overnight in a hotel, and we go to the game the next day. And so my dad's like, "Do you guys like the Red Sox better than the Yankees now?" Well, we like the Yankees. Our friends like the Yankees. And we stayed another night for another day. And we were told we would never see our mother again unless we pledged our allegiance to the Red Sox.
Never heard this story before.
can't wait to see
So
it.
it's a fun story unless you're my mother. But we were told you'll not see your mother again
Oh, wow.
until you're Red Sox fans. So we're Red Sox fans.
So was that the first time you lied to your father? 'Cause he didn't actually-
I was pretty scared of my father at that point.
How old were you? Because that's kind of a CPS violation.
I was like 4 or 5. I mean, it is terrible. But I guess back then in the 80s, that didn't count much,
Yeah, no
But,
there was
seatbelts,
that
no
big rival.
Yeah, right. No
and,
seatbelts.
and it's interesting because your father in the generation, he is because my dad and I had an uncle who were like big. My father was a big baseball fan. I had an uncle, my mother's brother, who was like a baseball encyclopedia. Even up until he passed in his his late 80s, and he was just could recite. He could tell you, give him a year, he'll tell you Ted Williams' batting average that year or Joe DiMaggio's or whatever. And so there was always that, in that generation, it was who was better, DiMaggio or Williams. And you always love to hear those
The big
two
battle.
rivalries,
Right.
come together and say, and talk about those two.
Oh, absolutely. So I was a Jim Rice guy growing up.
Jim Rice,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
He was.
Got to meet him once. He was a really
Oh, yeah?
nice guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, 14. So that was my hero growing up, my baseball hero. What about you? You were a hockey guy for a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was
So
a
you-
Mike Richter,
liked
Rangers
Richter.
fan. I was a goalie, and I Derek Jeter. I know it's kind of cliche, but
Jeter's-
but my grandma Shirley early on gave me his rookie year signed ball that still sits on my dresser at home. So it was kind of like my first memorabilia, like legitimate, and. I played even through baseball in college. I always had the DJ2 leather glove when I played shortstop, and it's just so I'm a.
Did you use that Jeterian throw from short? As your-
I tried pulling off, of course,
jump
every once in a
throw?
while,
So
but-
I have, you talk about your, and again, dating myself on years here, my glove it was a little league in school in the early years was Rico Petrocelli. It was a Rico Petrocelli glove. It was an infield glove. So you remember that, but yeah, I have a that's the other thing. I have a big baseball collection in terms of autographs, balls, signed by. I do have a Mickey Mantle ball. I do have,
Oh, that's a nice little hobby.
I do have it. Yeah, that's
we stumbled upon this.
That's a big.
We got it out of you.
Yeah, there you go. That's
that counts.
That counts. Yeah.
Want to get into hard hitters, Wesley?
Well, I'd love to talk about Nexus.
Yeah, that's
I know it's pretty random,
but
but
it's not that hard.
Sure.
Wait,
But,
hold on before we do.
Yeah.
Oh, look who's here.
There's a special delivery.
Make sure he knows what I said. Oh, look at him.
Welcome to the studio,
Chris.
Mr.
Welcome
Chris
in.
Testito.
Ever wonder where the perfect restaurant idea comes from, Wes?
I do wonder, but I have no idea where.
Well, guess what? It comes from vent sessions, learning the hard way, and maybe just a little bit of bourbon.
All right, sounds tasty.
All this leads to kick-ass sandwiches, soups, salads, and more in a laid-back atmosphere at Crust Kitchen and Bar.
Crust Kitchen and Bar. They've been crafting remarkable experiences, one bite and one sip at a time. Find them under the Rome Air Lofts at 86 Hangar Road, Rome, or online at crustkitchencny.com.
Come on over. Have a seat over here real quick.
I'm crashing your.
Yeah, no,
Crash the
we're going to do it
party.
real quick.
You are. And
It's all right.
It's because you're.
We're
You're
about to
partly,
make him sweat, so
you're
he's
partly
appreciating the bang.
responsible for this because I used you as a reason. Like I wasn't invited. I'm like,
What do we have here,
holy
Chris?
cow.
Tony, hope you're hungry.
Oh my goodness.
You wore black. It's slimming, so that's good.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you grab a seat? We got a mic for you over here.
It's a hot
Just
mic.
Take a quick 5-minute comment. What do we have here?
5 minute halftime.
It's Lent, so I brought
Oh,
some.
good. Okay, yeah.
We have the Batty Doug's tuna melt.
Ah, all right.
We have the Captain Stan's fried haddock sandwich.
Wow.
We have the classic negotiator.
Yes.
And then
yes,
the last time I was here, we talked about the Korean barbecue sandwich.
we did.
Finally got around to making it.
Okay.
So
all right.
that's there.
Is that an official menu item yet, or no?
It's a special.
It's a
It
special.
is a special. Okay.
It's a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be.
That's why it's
So
just
it's,
a
it's
Okay.
a special.
All right.
temporary special. So get it
And
while you
then
can. Yeah.
I thought maybe we'd have a lazy bread.
Oh. That's. I'm glad you said that. I'll speed up my lazy bread.
He's
that
one ahead of you.
I mean,
So
I
lazy
happen
bread
to have in my
yeah.
hand here. But
oh, you already made one?
I mean, I wasn't gonna have another round podcast without having a round. So
So now you're gonna have to have another. Yeah.
we'll have another round. Yeah. So I'm definitely gonna have at least a bite of the negotiator for you here. And Wesley, what's your go-to?
Well, negotiate like everyone else. It seems like.
But then again, you
you're
do
tough
it.
with food. I don't.
I'm not a foodie.
I quite
I
haven't
just.
figured you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just trying these sandwiches just for you, just to figure out.
What was?
So
Give me
that's
it one more time.
so that's
Please.
the Captain Stan. It's fried haddock, coleslaw, and our tartar sauce. That's the Batty Doug tuna melt.
See, tuna melt. I can rock that. I'm gonna give that a
That's
go.
the
Tony,
Korean
what's the crust go-to? You mentioned it was your favorite restaurant to go to.
Yes, I did say that. I did
Wow.
say that. It was the
First
first one out
It
of
was
my
the
mouth.
first one
I
on the
was
mind.
I mean, I just want you to know, I think you're the first person to ever mention crust on the podcast.
There you go.
Oh, I mean,
My go-to, I mean, and I tell them, I mean, is the Frank slow roast,
Frank Slow Roast.
prime
Yes.
rib, prime rib.
prime
of
rib.
course.
He gets mad when we run out of prime
Morgan,
rib.
can you just grab a couple
I know.
napkins
They were, one
for
time
us?
I went, or a couple
plates or
times,
something?
and they said,
unless you brought them, we're just gonna take a quick
brought
bite here for halftime.
It's only yours favorite county executive, so I guess it matches up.
You are my favorite.
well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, my kids tell me I'm their favorite dad. Like,
That helps.
That's
that
great.
Helps. That helps.
Not Uncle Johnny.
Yeah, I'm like,
All right, just for you.
is there another one I don't know about?
Korean? What was that Korean one?
The one, Korean's in the middle.
Oh, was it that one?
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab one.
Yeah, that's all.
All right. So okay, this does look up my alley. So I'm gonna try to.
Oh, the Brad reaction bite.
Oh my
is
God.
always.
I don't know if it's gonna
always the
reach
He
that.
best.
takes a great bite.
Does he?
I don't think it's gonna be as good as the Thanksgiving bite.
No.
I just left lunch, so that's why I was. But I got to
Where'd you
try
have
something.
lunch?
Marlock today. It's Friday. Yeah, I had to go to the Marlock.
That's fair.
Oh my
It's
God.
required.
Oh my
It's
God, there it
required.
is.
It's required. It's required. We good? Very good.
Oh, but
It's the barbecue.
That meat is so good.
Yeah.
I'm not even making this up.
And a 5th grader walked into Crust and told us exactly what he wanted.
That's right.
And he was spot on.
Morgan walked right into Crust too and told you exactly.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, Morgan.
Yeah.
I don't want to break up the
good times, but
the halftime commercial here, but got some work to do.
We gotta tweak it.
So is this still on the menu? The Korean barbecue?
That's currently running.
Okay.
It'll be for about another week.
All right, good. So it'll still be out when we post it. Great. Awesome.
Good.
So, wait, did you say you had alcohol by chance?
I did.
If you don't want to open it, I already have the fixings for a lazy
you
Brad.
do?
So if you'd like to chill and have a lazy Brad in the background here, you're more than welcome
All right.
to have a lazy Brad. And Morgan will grab you a glass. We have cherries. We got the Basil Hayden in another round decanter there, and the
You have your own decanters.
yeah. Actually, that was a present from Scott and Morgan. So
Very nice.
Very fancy.
Oh, he's sweating over
very
because we were
fancy.
just getting into
we had him
just
on
getting
the
into
edge of his
the-
seats
Yeah.
for the next question.
I walked in at the right time.
Yeah.
Walked in at the right time. But,
So-
we're talking about,
Yeah.
We're
So-
transitioning from sports.
From
and
memorabilia
collection,
to
memorabilia,
sports
memorabilia, what I collect.
He's a
all the
big collector.
baseballs.
You guys might know each other a little bit.
That's a little bit. Collect watches too. That's another one of my.
oh, watches?
Yeah, I'm a watch.
I have a Dolex
Yeah, but-
somewhere. Got a great deal on it in New York.
Might have a Spidey kids watch. I feel like
they call them vintage now or whatever, just all different kinds.
I feel like that's one area where I wish I knew a little bit about. Because just from some of the people that I hang out with, I can talk. I can have wine, bourbons. We can talk about age, whatever. But when it comes to the watches, I'm just not. I can't be like, example. We're in Nashville for a bachelor party with a couple guys out of New York, and there wasn't a night that went by that wasn't like, oh, do you see that girl's watch or that guy's? I was like, they're doing something. I was like, what are you talking about? Like you were looking at watches, like when you check people out.
I do that. I mean, just because I collect. Because
I feel like I'm missing
I have a
something.
Swatch.
I
Remember the
feel like I'm
Swatch
missing
watch?
something.
I
So-
I don't know if it's just again, it was something from everything goes back to your youth. I remember, I think when I was 10, I got my first watch, and it was like because my father was all right, be on time.
Right.
Didn't really help much, I can say, with that. But this way you're home for dinner in time and all that stuff. But anyway, and ever since then, I always wore a watch, and I'm almost lost without. I wear it all. I wear one all the time. So and then I got into just different kinds, and then my wife would find some unique ones and buy them and stuff for different gifts.
That's
and
good for
whatever.
her. So
it's
she's
just
in
a-
good shape for
Yeah.
Christmas or birthdays.
Yeah, so
she's
I,
got a plan.
and then I look for
That's
some,
nice.
I mean.
Do you ever have the
new-
confidence to bust out a pocket watch?
I do have a pocket watch too. I
See?
just bought
That
one of
means
those,
you're
too.
legit
yeah,
watch
I do.
collector.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Absolutely. I don't know if this is embarrassing or not, but
Probably.
but it probably is. So I actually did look up. I was like, what are the top 5 watch brands that top execs or whoever are wearing, like what a collectible. But I was happy to see that number 4 actually was an Apple Watch.
Which, interestingly enough, I do not have.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a game changer.
You're old school.
I'm old school,
yeah.
and that's the thing. Yeah, I mean,
You're a classic
exactly.
watch
I am. I mean,
connoisseur.
just that. I just, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Can you
just
have a
never-
conversation on a Rolex? I do not think so.
Now, do you have any sundials in your collection?
No, no.
Okay, we're not
sundials,
going
no
that far back.
sundials,
I-
No sundials.
I will
Just
say-
a lot of different.
This is
different
especially with the
ones.
amount of meetings that you're in and stuff like that.
Right.
Like it's kind of nice to, and especially even a podcast. I can just take a quick look,
Right.
And you just I got time, calendar. If someone's calling me, if someone's texting me, just a quick glance.
Yeah,
you don't have to pull your phone out.
Yeah, I
but-
just haven't. I haven't reached it yet.
So what's your number 1? If we're on the watches, we got to know if you're going up to. I know John Mayer's a big. If you're going up to a celebrity and who's also into watches, what would be your go-to watch that you would pull out and be like, I have this one.
Cartier.
Cartier. Okay. All right. So if I want to stay a local and on the up and up, I need to get a Cartier.
It's Cartier.
What about you, Wes?
Wow.
You ever think about watches?
No.
Cartier.
I
There's
had one at one point. I think it broke, and that was about it. Yeah.
Also knowing the battery ran out. But
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Chris, you got your drink? Come back in. You want to come hang? You get.
Interrupt.
No, we're just.
No.
no,
you're
and,
fine.
and I can cut you out because I only got one camera on you anyway, so I can cut you out at anything. But real question, and Wes and I are actually interested because we had a talk a couple weeks ago about what's going on in Oneida County and how funding works and what projects might come on. But Nexus was a huge success. major project.
Is still coming through.
Can you talk about how the funding?
Yeah, how you put that together
How
and-
do you form a project like that?
Well, when you work with Rob Esch, it's like, I got a great idea. It starts with that, and then you just start thinking, where am I going to find the money for this? Because
and that's kind of what that's a
But,
major.
well, I mean, look, when we looked at developing different projects, and it's no different on the manufacturing side or whatever. It's like someone's got to start somewhere. But on these projects, you try to look at it from, at least I have, we try to look at it from, okay, how do we get the biggest bang here without hitting people over the head or even impacting, and in my world, it's the property tax side of things.
Sure,
and
sure.
it's, because you don't want people looking and saying, oh, sure, they're building this and we're going to have to pay for it for the next however long. Because ultimately, like everybody else, I mean, you're not paying cash for these things. You've got to, the term in government is bonding, which is a more,
It's a euphemism.
sophisticated word for borrowing.
Borrowing money, yeah.
Right.
We're borrowing.
Right, you want your biggest bang for the buck out of those property taxes, right?
Right.
You don't want to.
so
You need
we're-
services. You need to take care of the constituents,
Right,
but you don't
so-
want to have it higher than it needs to be.
Right, so we're
Sure.
borrowing, so we bond, and but ultimately you got to get there, and you got to have some other, ways to get there, and certainly you look to, in this case, in Nexus and other things, you look to the state to say, okay, got an idea for a project, and what can you, here's it, and it starts from square one. You got to cost everything out, so you do that, and then we looked at it, and pitched it to the state to say, okay, how much. Can you give us for this? And usually the state, and different projects, depending on what they are, you're lucky to get 10% or 20, tops. In this case, we got a little bit more, but the project was smaller then too. And then we went from there. But then it was a matter of, okay, looking at everything we tried to do, and that's where, we had to get more creative, because again, it wasn't something that I could borrow, and I say I mean the county, that I could authorize borrowing for with the legislature to then say, okay, and we're going to be paying for it for a number of years, and it's going to come out of the property taxpayer or whatever, and that wouldn't be for jobs it's a little different, or for things that are more tangible in terms of the the complete public benefit. But if you look at
housing and
housing
stuff like that.
and
right.
and
Drug tax benefit from-
structures and business and obviously court facilities or public facilities in that regard. But so I mean, when we started looking at Nexus years back, and it started several years ago, when we talked about and for years, I always talked about adding another sheet of ice, next to the yacht. I mean, this goes back even before I was county executive, when I was with the state. And it was like, so we always talked about that. And where would that come from? And then, well, maybe the colleges will do it, and then we won't have to, we can figure it that
tax
way.
endowments and
But anyway, then fast forward is like, okay, well, one's not really enough.
If you're going to do it,
If we're going to do it, let's do two. And then two's not really enough. Let's do three. And it was like, wow, let's do three. That was really crazy. So ultimately, okay, we start designing three. And in the meantime, I'm trying to figure out how to pay for this and how to and it's not just about paying for it. It's about sustaining it too, because even with fees that teams pay, for tournaments,
You need the
play,
revenue
and
somewhere coming.
You're a hockey guy, this stuff.
Yep.
I mean, and it's still never enough, and you got to maintain the facility. So not only you're going to pay for it over a 20 or 30 year period of bonds,
you still
and
have cash
borrowing.
flow to
Cash
balance
flow,
out.
You got
maintenance.
cash flow,
Yeah.
cap fund, capex.
Yeah.
You got to make
Yep.
sure if the roof leaks, you fix it. If the ice, something goes wrong, if the whatever else, So how do we maintain it? So anyway, at that time, I started looking at and our bed tax was the lowest at the time in New York State, and at 2%. And if you go across the state, in even smaller communities or even different size communities, nobody was at 2 where we were.
Can you
Chris
just
is
talk
here.
about the bed tax just a little bit? How
Bed
that
tax
works?
is the bed tax was developed. Actually, Chris is here, and he's now the chair of the.
Well, doesn't that just
tourism
work
board.
Oh,
out?
that was convenient.
He's the chair of the tourism board, but it was ultimately. I mean, and we go back in time. It was his dad who was the creator of the Oneida County bed tax. They called it. I mean, bed tax was the slang for it. It's occupancy tax,
Right. So for
and it's
hotels,
attached to the hotels.
Yep.
And the idea was created back in by Chris Sr. in I think it was 1982 to create an occupancy tax that then in turn could be used to promote tourism for the county, and that became very successful. And in 1982, 2% on a tax was, I mean, that was standard, but that was a good funnel of cash.
So standard
Well,
practice throughout the rest of the state.
it
a lot of
was,
the
and
area, or a lot of
then
areas.
as time went on,
inched up.
other counties, some of the bigger ones, obviously increased those from 2 to 3 to 4 to 6. I mean, obviously New York, I think, is at 10%.
Oof, yeah.
So I mean, it varies, but we had always been at 2%. And so anyway, as we were looking at all of these other things, and I was trying to develop more of an expansive tourism piece, that would include, one of the things was, how do we help? And it wasn't just about Nexus. It was like, so how do we help our other entities that are drawing people in? I mean, because from where I sit and all that time, different cultural and arts and even sports, everybody's knocking on the door saying, we need help with this. We want to build this. We want to fix this.
They're not
and
calling us to say hi and trade recipes? No?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Whether it was, whether it's the Stanley or Munson or Sculptor Space or the Capitol or Rome Theater or name one or then go get into the sports. And so, and we're really locked in, and those are tough things to reach in from the government side, because then the other problem is once you do one, you got to do this one. And you got to do this one.
Precedent has been
Do
set.
this one, and then
Yeah.
it gets more complicated. So I first was, look, our bed tax is too low, considering where we are in time, in this economy, and in 2000 and at the time 2017, 18, or wherever we were, and we got to start. We got to bump it. So we have to go back, but that's something we have to go back to the state legislature to get. So at the time, I had, of course, Senator Griffo, and at the time it was Assemblyman Brindisi. Between the two of them, we were able to, but there's still a process, and it's still, more to do. It's not just, okay, we'll give it to you. It's like, why? And what are you doing? And so one of the things that I included in that, because in looking at models across, not just across the state, really, because across the state was a little different, across the country. It's like they use this money not only to promote tourism, but to build tourism. And I think if you look at, and it's going to escape me the county name, where Disney is.
No.
I'm trying to think of the county. I can't remember the county
Kissimmee?
name. But
Is
Kissimmee,
I don't know if that's a county.
no, it's not.
That's
No, it's
town.
not the
That's
county. It'll come to me. But
yeah.
anyway, the county there, I mean, they have a bed tax of 6%. Okay. Do you know what that bed tax generates in
It's
terms
a little
of
guessing
busy.
that?
There.
it's
It's a little busy
there.
there.
I think it's
a lot of
I think
counties.
I think if Chris was the chairman of that board, that bed tax down there generates like $360 million a year.
Yeah.
It's crazy money, and they in turn, but obviously it's Orlando and the surrounding areas, and so they in turn take that portions of that and build things and repair and repair or enhance things. So I wanted the ability to say, okay, we have this occupancy tax that goes for the tourism efforts, so we promote Oneida County events, what we're doing, attracting people with all of the entities that we have. But I also want to use some of it for capital expenditures.
You need the
so
attractions
that-
in order to
so that-
actually bring
yeah,
people to the
and,
hotels.
And part of it
have
was
tourism,
with
right.
part of it was with Nexus in mind. That and it becomes then twofold. So we increased it to 5%. We got the bonding capacity of the Audit Authority because it was kind of tied in with that. Because the Audit Authority only had a bonding capacity of their own of $2 million, which does not, I mean, do much in terms of even repairs. I mean, today,
By a Zamboni.
That's an annual budget.
so we got that, coinciding with the increase in the tax, got their capacity increased to 50 million cap on bonding capacity, so that they could also in turn borrow along with us or whatever, if need be, and therein would lie, we could use that money to pay down the debt service of those bonds. And in turn, what happens is, and with the example of Nexus is, so we're attracting visitors, throughout the week, and really, obviously prime on the weekends, and so they're coming from all over the Northeast and even beyond. We've got, even West Coast people that have showed up here.
Well, and not to mention the women's hockey coming up.
Right, we have, and now we'll get to that. So
without that initial investment, none of this.
So in turn, and the uniqueness was, so we are paying off or starting to pay the debt service with occupancy tax. So it's not property tax. It's not
It's people who
anything that, people
live outside of the county.
Visitors
They're paying
are
for
paying
what's
now
in
rather
residence.
so the more successful Nexus is, the more generation, more is generated on the occupancy tax. So we're successful in paying. We don't have to worry about paying the debt service, and still we have even more money.
Plus, sales tax
promote-
revenue is probably up,
Sales
right?
tax-
They're spending
plus
money on
sales
other
tax is
items.
the other side.
Sure.
Plus, we're generating more revenue. So now, in addition to what we're doing for Nexus, we have more money available for, and this Christmas, and we have the USA Women's World Championships coming up, which, there's another pot that we can draw from to help promote that. So we're not taking it anyplace
So
else.
what was your initial reaction when Rob called you and said that we landed the world's women's world hockey?
He kind of prefaced it, he had no chance, right?
Well, I told him, I told the
thing.
story
he's
that, and Rob and I talk, every week or whatever, and, multiple
We're not
times.
gonna get this,
it's
Tony,
like,
but-
hey, and
We're getting a sympathy visit.
Yeah, I
here.
think Rob. It's like, hey, listen, we put in for this thing. We're never gonna get it. I just want you to know we're never gonna get it. I want you to come and meet these guys. If you can you come down? And we got a meeting with with Tony Driscoll from USA Hockey. They're nice people, but they're here, they're looking, but we're not getting, and it's Rob,
It's a good Rob impression.
All right, we're not getting it. Go meet, talk, and look. You don't go in there, with
Right, you
that
go in there, you're
attitude. You go
pitching.
in there, make the good pitch.
Sure,
Look, we want you here.
Sure.
We can do a lot of different things, and this is real exciting. And then all of a sudden, all right, this is good. This one, we really like the facility and everything. And then you have to do it like a couple weeks later. It's like, holy, we got it.
Was it like, you're going to kill me, or you won't believe this? What was the first? What was the phrase?
It was like, you're not going to believe this, or whatever, and with a couple expletives mixed in there.
It's a little more colorful that way.
Yeah, more colorful. Like, how are we going to, how are we going to do this now too?
But what an honor to even be considered in there with cities like Denver and Toronto, like
Salt Lake City, Chicago,
because they were up in, was it Montreal or Toronto, where they actually came down
to
visit.
And a lot of these things had to align because it was so close. They were able to visit themselves on the second thing.
And the funny, the other thing was, you go back a few years. Look when we did the All-Star games. Those were.
Yep.
Those are kind of crazy too. When Rob, I remember that another call. Rob, when he said,
"You gotta stop answering." This,
how do you feel
phone
when you see Rob has come across the cell phone?
A text from him. But that one was the same thing. It was like, hey, Chicago couldn't. It was Chicago, I think, on the first one. Mm-hmm. They can't. They got some problem. They can't do the AHL All-Star game, and
Which is
Can we do
wild
it?
because you're talking about Chicago, and then you're like, Utica's winning this over Chicago right now. And
But
that's
you know,
what
and then,
amazing.
You know, but the other thing, and it works especially on this one, we do have a great benefit because we have Turning Stone,
Yeah.
Oneida Nation, in which, you know, in the difference in, you know, a city like Utica or even Rome. I mean, while we have a variety of hotels, you don't have one that can house, you know, because these events look, we want everybody in one place.
Right.
And, you know, that's hard to do with some of the other,
right.
you know, not taken away from the hotels. They do a great job or whatever, but to have one in which you can have, because that was one of the requirements under the USA Hockey was you got 10 teams, you know, from
And their
across
staff,
the world.
right.
You know, which, you know, I mean, 30, 35 player. I mean, or well, with coaching and everything,
with the coaches
right?
and stuff, 30,
coaches
30,
and stuff, probably and trainers, 35, I think is about the number. So there's, you know, I mean, so do the math on that, and then, you know, the other, you know, officials of USA Hockey and all that. So where can you all put them under one roof? You know, all, you know, controlled in that regard. So we have that advantage. Same with the All-Star game when we did that, you know, and then we did it 2 years later. They came back and said, we want to do it again. So we had that, you know, we had that ability. So, you know, so back to the whole point of Nexus is, you know, what it generates, it pays for, and then some. Mm-hmm. And it benefits. And the other thing with Nexus, I think, which, you know, it's just not a benefit to Nexus. It's a benefit to the other entities that, you know, in terms of sports, arts, and entertainment, which ultimately I still would like to see. You know, one of the things that we talked briefly about it is really we tried this years ago. It was called ACE, and we wanted an arts, culture, and entertainment authority that could, you know, serve with the tourism board that would combine all of these
connect all the
things
dots,
and connect all the dots.
Right, because you're coming from out of town in Nexus, yeah, your kid's playing hockey or you're going to, but you know, you don't do that all day. So you want them to go down the street and go down to the theater or Munson and all the restaurants and experience Utica. But you have seen that revival down there. It certainly
and it ties in with the other pieces, and that's why we've got I met with Rob again the other day because it's our next phase. We talked about what's next because we do know. While Nexus has really exceeded even in the short time, because you got the growing pains of, what's it going to be like in the first, in the first few months, let alone even the first year, and looking at it. But it's only been open 16
15
months.
Yeah,
15,
open like
16
November
months.
of
November of 20.
Right.
November of 22. I mean,
remember Rob being panicked. We got a tournament in 3 weeks. Our
yeah,
first
I know.
tournament.
And we got
to get
finish.
this thing done.
We got to finish.
Yeah.
So here we are. I mean, and it's exceeded that, but now it's also we know that we got to fill in some spots.
Right.
Around in and around there because we got to have some more things for people to do.
Yeah, it's never just one
More
thing. It's
services.
the entertainment, but the food and the rest. Yeah. We talked about Utica a little bit, and obviously Nexus is a huge project. Where do you think Rome needs to be concentrating on for one, the best project that would attract money, or two, what do you think the next? There's a ton that needs to be done, but what do you think the stepping stones may be initially to keep people or get the sales tax up or whatever it may be, whether it's on the business park or
just to get action.
Yeah, because obviously Nexus is a huge focal point of Oneida County. We have a different focal point on the business park that we're attracting. Wes and I got to tour AFRL and Innovare yesterday to see some of the new projects and a ton of talent and a lot of people coming in. But you know what? And maybe
we don't seem to capture them into Rome that
what's
much.
the capture next thing that Rome should be looking at that might even have some funding or some possibilities out there to grow?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've talked about over the years and tried to. I mean, the difference. Just not to contrast too far off, but the auditorium was a big piece of obviously because that kind of was the anchor. But I can just to go back a little bit in my early days as county executive, the Aud was faltering. and there was a question of what to do with it. I mean, and so
Right.
it was kind of, timing was like kind of interesting. And Utica College at the time, now Utica University, was really the resurgence of the hockey presence
Sure.
in the region. I mean, even though it had always still had, you had these people like yourself playing, but going elsewhere to play. And even though they were established here. So anyway, that kind of made that a little bit different for Utica. But when we talked about this before, and I've talked to Mayor Lanigan too about what do we need, and it does go back to having something for people to do, but it's also about that avenue of getting them there, and in getting them there, is really, at least in my mindset and belief, is half of the problem, because if you can't get them there, and you can't keep them there. And I know that sounds, but so you've got to have, there's got to be, and as they drive through, I think they've got to be able to see, hey, what's happening over there? And that's kind of what we envisioned in Nexus too. It was like I wanted people to go by and go, I want to be up there. I want to see what's going on.
A little wow factor. Just to
Yeah,
get
and
your
I think
right.
so. I think from a development stage and from a point of where I sit, it's like, okay. I mean, so again, it goes back to what are the linkages that bring people together, and in terms of it, and is it is it the Capitol Theater? Is it if we're talking Rome, is it sports, and do we need to expand on that over here? And that's obviously a possibility that, and I know that that's something that Jeff or Mayor Lanigan wants to talk about. We've talked a little bit about it in his early time now in office. But I also think it's about as you enter an area to see what's happening. And I see that's what kind of changed the dynamics, greatly in Utica, because if you just drove down the street and didn't see anything, then nobody else wanted to be there either. So I think we got to, I think when it comes to Rome, we I've got some ideas, but I think we've got to open it up a little bit. And what I mean by that is you've got to, the entranceway has got to be, the gateway. I mean, sometimes that gets overplayed, but not enough, because I think it's important for people to know where they're coming into and what they can see, and whether, and the unique thing about Rome, really, because when you look at Utica, it's okay. You're, the main drag is Genesee Street, right? There's no other. I mean, you're not. Even though there's neighborhoods all around. That's
that
the
throughway,
focal
the
point.
Genesee
From the
exit
throughway
there
from the north, and Genesee from the south, and they converge
right.
into the downtown area. The difference, the
Rome,
benefit
you got
of Rome,
the Dr. King Bridge. You kind of come in, and you're right in downtown.
right? But or you come through. You've got the Griffiths piece too.
Right, yeah.
So you've got two. You really have
You got a couple-
two major entrances there.
You got some unique pieces, and I also, would like to see. I mean, something on both sides. But I also think you come into Rome, and I want to get people mad at me, but you got this big fort right there, and what do we, what else can we do to make that,
Take advantage of that, or make it
take advantage of
better,
that, or make
special.
that better, and make
Not that it needs to go away.
no,
but there can be
no,
adjustments.
But
and
what are we? What else
embrace
can
it,
we
make it
build
more of a
upon
focal
that? I mean, you got history there, and if you go to, and look, if you go to places like Gettysburg or other parts of Virginia or in the Capitol and different things, and recognizing that there are history, or there are landmarks like that that can be expanded upon, and I think that may be. I've always thought about, and I'll pitch it here first before.
Here's our exclusive.
Cutting through that, opening that gateway back up, from Dominic to Dominic.
Yeah, they do a line already.
and
Which when we looked at that,
Did
'cause
you look at it?
We talked
'Cause we talked about it.
Yeah, we talked, and as soon as I think we both went and struck to the map
Did you
after
go look
our
at it?
meeting,
Like,
and we're like,
does that work?
yeah, and you're right.
can
I mean,
kinda
east and west
make it
do
work.
align perfectly. Actually, it would even still align to this day.
And you know, we looked at it, and I think I told you about this. We looked because I like history. I mean, that's another hobby. History. I
Look
read
at you,
I
full
read
of
a ton.
hobbies now.
Full of
I mean,
hobbies.
you really
Full of them.
downplayed it at
I
the beginning.
know,
You
I
really
kinda-
did. You had us in the first half.
You think I know that's true. I mean, but I mean, I'm like I love looking at history and reading and all that stuff. But when we dug into some of the the early stuff of when the fort was being built, that was supposed to part of the original plans was to make that kind of a pass through, but with something there.
Yeah. It's
You know,
kind
with-
of
with-
with
with
two
whether it was-
identities right now.
Whether it
we
was
kinda link-
retail or
yeah.
whether, and I don't know, I can't say the specifics or what the the designers at that time had in mind, but it was keep that open. Then look, like everything, in time and even today, it's like, well, somewhere along the line, it was like, yeah, that's too expensive. We just got to do it this way. So I don't think it was. It was with any kind of malice or any kind of yeah, we're not. We're not going to do that. I think it
makes
was.
sense.
We've had
Yeah,
enough fun
money around.
But I
reconstructing
think
this
it was.
fort.
It
Right,
was.
just
It
get
was
rid
a,
of it.
I think it, like so many projects, it became a financial issue that we can't do all that we want to do. So let's just put the fort up and go from
It's an
there.
interesting thought, though, if you do connect that, because you do have that parking garage down now, so you do have a bit of a blank slate nearby, and yeah, maybe there's something to come.
Well, and
that would work.
shown by what happens at Nexus, things can pay for themselves if done correctly, right? It's supposed to be an attraction. There should be reasons to do this. You shouldn't just do it just to do it. But there's revenue generators for both the city and the county behind this.
Right. And
A lot
small
of these
businesses
decisions. Small
around.
businesses.
And because look, Dominic Street has been, in time, on the east side and the west side, part of that
Yep.
that corridor that you would not obviously, not say is equal to Genesee Street because it's not as long and doesn't have
Or it's tall.
the whole commercial corridor, but it has pieces, and so if you can, and I think it is about people being able to see what's there and not coming in off 49 and then you're in a commercial kind of corridor. It's like and that's good. You need commerce, you need commercial businesses and stores and the retail aspect of it, but where's the rest of it? What else is there? I mean, and that's why even up at and not because he's here, but up at Griffiths, the fact that you've got other activity where there are people,
Right.
where people are walking, where people are driving through, where people are walking that don't live there.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
another key
6,000
piece. I mean,
plus
there's
just in the
people that
offices.
don't,
Yeah.
that walk through Griffiths, but don't live in Air City or even on Floyd Ave for that matter, but park their cars and walk, and so now that changes the dynamics of what you have, and I think we need to expand upon that.
Yeah.
I know you got we got about 10 minutes left here.
Do you have got a hot date? Or
No,
you
I'm good. I'm good.
a few
I could
minutes.
talk all
You have
day.
a question or gripe, or I don't know how to phrase it.
What? He's
but
got a gripe?
but something.
He's got a gripe.
I said I ran this question past Brad before. I'm like, I might sound stupid with this one. He said, give it a go. It has nothing to do with the fact that I got pulled over last week by a county sheriff, but
No.
nothing to that.
Okay.
I did not get a ticket. I got out of it somehow.
Yeah,
But
I showed a little skin.
I used the kid card in the back seat.
There you
But
go. Well played.
county sheriffs, why don't we just make them troopers? Like, do we need the different levels?
I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know where they.
I'm sure you've
fit.
had this question before and have a great answer for me. I'm just like, because they have like a trooper barracks here, then like, well, this seems a little redundant to me.
There is some redundancy in law enforcement, and there is, the issues. And one of the things that we have. I mean, and I've said this publicly, so I'm not going to get, I'm not worried about it.
Okay, I didn't mean to give you a
We've had,
stickler here.
I mean, if you look at I've talked about consolidation in a lot of aspects of it. Now,
Let's save some coin for the county,
The
is what I'm
difference with
thinking.
this, there is a difference between the state police and the sheriffs. I mean, sheriff's a constitutional officer. You're going to have a sheriff. There are functions that only the sheriff can can provide, and obviously, law enforcement or road patrol, as it's referred to, but it is the law enforcement division that's out on the roads or whatever. But there's not enough. The state police could not cover, everything that we cover as a sheriff's office in that regard. There are other areas of policing, and then you have Rome and Utica, but
Right.
those are because necessary because of the city
Population
boundaries.
density, right?
Yeah, we have, if you look at the other piece in Whitestown, you have like 7 agencies. That's where the redundancy really is, in which whether it's a sheriff's or a version of a county police, which some of the bigger counties have. But the issue of the difference with the sheriff and the state police, some different duties there too. I mean that go along because we have a correctional facility
Right,
that we're
right, that's
responsible
it too.
for.
Right.
That carries with it that requires not just the correction side, but the transport side, but the law enforcement side. So
Shout out to OCJ.
You're in different courts, you're in different transports, you're investigating different county level issues, and and they have the ability and the equipment to handle various crimes. That not everything is going to be handled by the state police, outside of the cities and
Right.
and even suburbia. And there used to be a lot more, village and town office or town police departments. That's compressed a lot over time, and but it's still, it's still small. But that's where
Yeah, I think we still
that's
certainly need
where
them
the
out
concern-
on the roads. I'm just thinking if you can dump them, turn them over to the state, then you don't have to pay for them.
Well,
Wouldn't that be nice?
That's not as easy as that's not.
They
as
won't
easy.
take that?
They won't take it.
They won't take that deal?
No, they would. I mean, they.
I'm just trying to get the
some of
property
the
taxes down
officers
just a
might
little
take
bit
it.
more.
Yeah,
I know.
I know. That's true. That's true. We could say that's your only gripe. That was an
No,
easy
that wasn't
one.
really
I
a
thought
gripe.
you
He
had a gripe.
prefaced me with
I
that.
just-
I thought
you
he
know,
said
I
you
mean-
had.
No,
he
that was
said
my only
he
question
called me
for you.
before.
Slow down,
and said,
asshole.
he called me before and said, you're gonna have you're gonna have your hands full with this guy.
One last question, just kind of really basic, if you don't mind. We have 2 new mayors in your 2 biggest cities in
Yeah.
the county. How has that gone? And I think the Utica Rome combo thing is probably better than ever. I feel like.
Well, I think look,
This might be a great way to
one of the
keep
things
it going,
one of the
right?
things when we started, I mean, Brad started by telling me everybody how long I've been here. So I mean, I've been through
through a few mayors.
I've been through a few mayors in Rome and a few mayors in Utica. But no, and look, I've had good relationships, but I'm really I mean, I think both in my and I've had a number of meetings with both of them, since the beginning of the year, and I'm excited about what they see and the ideas that they're bringing, and we've been working closely. Obviously, met on some issues of the hockey with the mayor of Utica, but we met with Rome and Utica on codes issues and things that we want to improve and strengthen. So look, we work together. I mean, the point is, and I know they're all the same party now, so everybody can say, well, you're going to work with them. No, I work with everybody. Yeah. And for me, or for anyone sitting in the seat that I'm in, if Utica and Rome do not succeed, the county doesn't succeed. And that's a fact. That's always been a fact. That's a reality. I know sometimes the towns look at it in a different way, and it's not meant to diminish what is happening in towns across this county, because they have a lot of activity, and there's industry there, and there's businesses there. But the cities are the hubs in many ways, and obviously the population centers. When you look across the county in terms of what has, and the goal is to build it up and to increase housing and things like that. So it's essential to have a good relationship and to really look at the 2 cities in that regard. I mean, it's unique because a lot of counties don't have 2. Actually, we have 3 cities. I can't not mention the city of Sherrill, even though it's the smallest city in the state of New York in that regard.
I know the
But
Rome Utica competition well. It's,
yeah. But I think that's softened quite a bit
really
over
has.
time.
Yeah.
Does Wes, you and I alluded to this a little bit when the mayor talked. Does the DNR really? How much weight does that hold at the lower political levels?
At the local
right?
level.
I mean, you mentioned the only reason I mentioned it because you have
you're not battling on abortion and gun control, and it's much different. I feel like
and Galimi
at the
and
local
ours, but other than the name of it, where are the?
It really doesn't. I don't think and I don't think anybody has ever. I think that's one of the funny things that when, whether it's been other officials or other businesses that would have talked to us in time and said, can we get together and is that okay? And it's like, yeah, fine, we work together. And then, you do?
they're shocked.
And then, even in, but to your point, even in smaller communities, that does, and I think that's been the benefit of this community, that even with the polarization that has taken place over the last several years with both parties, it hasn't emanated to us, and then I'm going to hope that it doesn't. And that we can continue, to work the way we have, because I think, look, if we're all on the same page as far as if we want a better place for our people, then
it doesn't. Yeah.
What matters? It is important for this community as a whole to have this local paper and its and its connections to the community. I mean, that is, everybody, there are probably some elected officials, and I notice I don't use the word politician because I don't.
That sounds good.
I don't like that.
Yes.
But anyway, no, some elected officials that would, this paper, that paper. We need a paper. Mm-hmm. We do. We need to tell the story. We need to be able to tell our story too, and to really get the facts out, and get your opinion and hear from people. And I think without it just doesn't. It's harder for us to do our job in that regard.
Oh, I appreciate it.
It helps us. Yeah. It helps us to do that when people say, good or bad, because then it's like, I saw that story and either I like what you're doing, tell me more about it, or I'm not real happy about this, but then you can explain, or then you can and look whether that changes them. That's not the goal. The goal is to really, for us anyway, explain why we're doing things the way we are.
That's great. I mean, obviously, we're here for the greater good of the community, and seeing what's happening in some cities and towns around the country that lose that. And unfortunately, the residents don't realize what they have until you don't have, and that's just a natural thing that happens.
I think it's great that you guys. I don't know if you on purpose do it, but there's a lot of emphasis on the good stuff that's happening, and that's the stuff that I see all the time. And you look at some of these websites and like online news companies and different places like that, and there's always so much negativity, and it's like at a certain point you're sick of it and you stop looking at it. But
the clickbait out there, right?
And it does take a lot of effort to overcome the bad stuff, because that's really what kind of draw people in initially sometimes, and we can only fight Google so much, right?
Yeah,
right.
Whatever. If it bleeds, it reads is a very true statement.
Yeah.
If we get a drug bust, which really doesn't have, it's not a huge event. We try to cut down on that, but when it does happen, we'll get 10,000 clicks within the first couple hours, and there's nothing we can do to control that. But if we get a great donation to a nonprofit that's doing XYZ, it takes a time to just do it. And it's, even though that what the nonprofit might be doing may be game changing, it's just unfortunate it takes time for that good information to kind of come out. And what we're trying to do with What's Upstate in that app is to kind of control some of that narrative when we're sending people about, there's a lot of great happening here. I mean, whenever we talk to people from out of town, we take a lot for granted. When you live here and grow up here, you're like, this is really good. And talking to these people that come out and actually want to come back. We were at Novare, and some of the people that kind of come out of that program and end up at the Air Force Research Lab because they liked it here and they enjoyed the experience here, and we have so much going on here. That story needs to be told more, and anything we can do to do it, we do our best to do.
But that's another aspect we can talk about the next time. But I mean, all the other stuff that we've got, on the educational and industry and technology side of this community, huge. Which then adds to the piece when people come here for the entertainment piece. But back to the paper, so many social media sites, when you click on and turn the computer on first thing in the day, and it goes to Microsoft and whatever, and all the news, and you click on some of those stories, and it gives you a headline, and then when you read it, there's nothing there. It's like it's either speculative or like
Gotcha.
Like
The
what
true
if
definition of
it doesn't
clickbait.
say. It's like wait a minute, this doesn't say anything that the headline said.
Yep.
And the difference, going back to what you guys do every day is the headline matches. You tell the story, and that and that's what people need to And I'm still that's we still grasp every day. It's like we want what we say, not just for to be heard and to be read and to be understood. And then it stimulates more of the conversation.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Wesley?
I love it. I think that's the podcast. That little
There you
5
go.
minute.
Yeah,
talk.
we'll just cut it down to that.
That
Replay that
was
over and
it.
over
All
again.
that.
That's all. That's all Tony wanted to say. I don't know. It was
That's
weird.
it.
Taking away all that memorabilia,
He
and
gave us 5
watches
minutes,
and all that.
and he pretty much
Yeah,
covered
just-
everything.
Yeah, covered everything.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. All
But
right, all
thanks
right.
for joining us.
Yeah,
We had a lot of
thank
fun,
you.
and we'll
Yeah.
do this again soon.
Love to.
And thanks
Love
for
to.
letting me crash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, you paid your way.
And now
You
the
paid.
next time you're on, I'm crashing. Okay. I
I'm
probably
still
won't
waiting
bring.
for my invite back. I
I won't bring sandwiches though. I can, I can cook, but I won't do.
You do cook pretty well.
I do cook pretty well.
Ooh.
See,
We taking this thing on the road
He
to?
makes-
There's another one.
How many
Andy's
hobbies do you
kitchen?
have?
Yeah,
He
man.
makes
Oh
a
my
great,
goodness.
great leg of lamb.
Yeah, the sea. There you go.
I wasn't gonna guess that.
You get it from New Zealand.
There you go.
It would be very hard to guess, but yeah.
That would have been
All right.
tough.
We might have to
Great
take this
leg
to
of
Tony's
lamb.
kitchen
Yeah,
next
there you
time.
go. Next
the road.
podcast
On the road.
On the road.
Awesome.
Sure. Good.
Thanks, guys.